She always sat in the same place, not in the front, where confident students liked to be seen. Not in the back either, where people often hid. Somewhere in the middle, a place that felt safe. A place where no one really noticed her unless they had to. She arrived early to class, opened her notebook, and listened carefully. She wrote down every instruction. She followed every rule. She never raised her hand unless the teacher called on her. She never complained, even when lessons felt hard. She never showed off, even when she knew the answer to the teachers. She was just another student, quiet, polite, easy to overlook. The music hall was a large, serious place. The ceiling was high, making every sound echo longer than expected. Long curtains hung along the walls, heavy and dark, barely moving. The wooden floor was old and worn. It made soft creaking sounds when someone walked too fast or shifted their weight. At the center of the hall stood the piano. It was big, black and solid. It looked like it had been there forever, like it belonged there more than anyone else. Many students felt nervous around it. Some avoided it unless they were told to play. Some sat proudly at the bench, eager to prove themselves. She felt something different. She respected it most days. She walked past the piano without touching it. Not because she didn't want to play, but because she didn't want attention. At school, being invisible felt safer than being seen. Being unnoticed meant fewer questions, fewer judgments, fewer chances to be misunderstood. At home, everything changed. At home, the piano waited for her every night. The house was small and quiet after sunset. The walls were thin. Outside sounds came and went, cars passing, distant voices, the world moving on. Inside, things slowed down. When she sat at the piano, time felt different. Her fingers knew where to go. They always had. She had learned early, long before grades, exams, or performances mattered. No one had pushed her into it. No one had forced her to practice. Music simply made sense to her when other things didn't. When words felt heavy or confusing, music felt clear. When she played, she didn't feel small. She didn't feel unsure. She felt steady, like she was standing on solid ground. But she never spoke about it at school. There were reasons for that. In the past, when she tried to share something she loved, it hadn't gone well. People misunderstood. Some smiled politely but didn't listen. Some laughed. Some made comments that stayed with her longer than they should have, so she learned a lesson early. Keep the important things quiet. Music became private. Something just for her. A quiet promise between her and the piano. No pressure. No expectations at school. Performance evaluations were coming up. Everyone knew it. You could feel it in the hallways. Some students practiced loudly with doors open, hoping others would hear how good they were. Some complained about stress, repeating how hard everything felt. Some joked about it, pretending they didn't care. She said nothing. She walked to class like always. She listened. She took notes. She blended in. When the teachers met to plan the performances, her name came up briefly. Not with excitement, not with concern, just a name on a list. Someone flipped a page. Someone checked the schedule. There was a problem, though. One advanced piano slot was still empty. Time was short. Schedules were tight. The piece chosen for that slot was known to be very difficult. Too difficult for most students. It was the kind of piece that demanded full focus, control, patience, feeling. It didn't forgive mistakes easily, usually. Only the top students were given something like that, but there was no one else available. Someone suggested her name. The room went quiet for a moment. She's quiet, one teacher said, but she shows up. She's not ready for that piece, another replied. It might be too much for her, a third voice added, almost casually. It could be a good lesson. A lesson? The decision was made quickly, without much thought. They would assign her the piece. If she failed, it would be expected. If she struggled, it would prove their point. Either way, the schedule would be complete, and the problem would be solved. When she was told, she listened carefully. She nodded once. She didn't argue. She didn't ask for an easier piece. She didn't explain anything. Inside, something tightened. She knew the piece, not just a little. She knew it well. She had played parts of it before, alone, late at night. Never all at once. Never for anyone else. She knew where it demanded strength. She knew where it required calm. She knew how easy it was to lose control if fear took over. She felt fear. Yes, but not because she thought she couldn't play it. She felt fear because she understood what it meant. This piece would not allow her to hide. Practice began the next day. School practice rooms felt cold compared to home. The sound bounced off the walls. Every wrong note felt louder than it really was. Every pause felt like someone was listening, even when no one was there. Some students passed by the door. Some slowed down. Some whispered, "Why did they give her that piece? She's going to mess it up. She doesn't look like a pianist." She kept her eyes on the keys. Her hands shook at first. Not because she didn't know what to do, but because she felt exposed. She missed a note, then another. She stopped, took a breath, started again. Slowly, each time, she reminded herself to breathe at home. She practiced more late into the night. When the world outside was quiet, she worked through the piece carefully. She didn't rush. She didn't panic. She broke it down, note by note. She listened closely, feeling where the music wanted to go. Some nights were smooth. Everything flowed. Some nights were hard. Her fingers felt heavy. Her mind felt tired. There were moments when doubt crept in. What if they were right? What if she froze on stage? What if her hands failed her when everyone was watching? During those moments, she stopped. She closed her eyes. She played something simple, something familiar. A piece that reminded her why she loved music in the first place. Not for approval. Not for grades. Not for anyone else. Just because it felt honest. Days passed. The hall grew busier as the performance date approached. Posters were placed on walls. Chairs were arranged in neat rows. The piano was polished until it shone under the lights. Teachers watched rehearsals more closely now. When they listened to her, their faces stayed neutral. No smiles, no frowns. Just observation, she noticed. She also noticed that no one asked how she was feeling. No one checked in. No one wondered if she was ready. The night before the performance, she couldn't sleep. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to the quiet sounds of the house. Her heart felt heavy. Not with fear of the music, but with the weight of expectation, or rather, the lack of it. No one expected her to succeed. There was a strange loneliness in that. In the morning, she woke early. She didn't rush. She moved slowly, like she was carrying something fragile inside her. She ate a little. She drank water. She stretched her hands carefully. When she arrived at the hall, it looked bigger than ever. Rows of seats, warm lights above. The piano waiting at the center, lit open, keys glowing softly. People filled the space with quiet chatter. Students, teachers, a few visitors. She stood off to the side. Watching, her name was on the program, simple, plain, easy to overlook. As her turn grew closer, her chest tightened. Not with panic, but with focus. Everything else faded. Noise softened. Time slowed. A teacher gave her a short nod. "Whenever you're ready." She walked to the piano. Each step echoed louder than she expected. The hall seemed to stretch. The air felt thick. She sat down, adjusted the bench, and placed her hands on her lap. For a moment, she didn't play. She looked at the keys. She thought about the quiet nights at home, the mistakes no one saw, the small victories no one clapped for, the way music had held her together when words failed. Then she lifted her hands. Her fingers hovered. Just for a second, the hall waited, and then she pressed the first key. The first sound filled the hall softly. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It didn't try to impress anyone. It was calm and steady, like a quiet voice that knew exactly what it wanted to say. Some people shifted in their seats without thinking. A few leaned forward, their bodies reacting before their minds did. She kept her eyes on the keys. They looked the same as they always had. Black and white, smooth, familiar. Her hands rested on them like they belonged there. She did not rush. She did not hesitate. Her fingers began to move. Slowly at first, carefully, but not fearfully. Each note landed where it was meant to land. Nothing extra. Nothing missing. The sound traveled across the room, touching the walls, the ceiling, the far corners of the hall. It settled into the air, warm and clear, like it had found its place. Something changed. The whispers stopped. Cough that had been about to escape someone's throat never came. A foot that had been tapping stopped mid-movement. The teachers, who had been sitting with crossed arms and polite focus, straightened a little in their chairs. One of them lowered their pen and forgot what they were about to write. Another stopped flipping through the program and stared at the stage instead. This was not what they expected. As the music continued, it grew deeper, stronger, not louder, but fuller. Her fingers moved with purpose now. They were no longer careful in the way of someone afraid to fail. They were natural, confident, like they had been waiting a long time for this moment. She wasn't thinking about the audience anymore. She wasn't thinking about the teachers. She wasn't thinking about the program, the rules, or the expectations placed on her. She wasn't thinking about failure. She was thinking about the buys. Each section flowed into the next without effort. The difficult parts came and went, but they did not slow her down. Her hands did not shake. Her shoulders stayed relaxed. When the piece asked for strength, she gave it without force. When it asked for softness, she pulled back gently. Letting the sound breathe, the hall felt smaller now, closer, like the music had wrapped itself around everyone inside. Pulling them together, without asking permission, a student in the front row stopped tapping their foot and sat still. Someone near the back held their breath without realizing it. Even those who didn't understand music felt something happening. They couldn't explain it, but they knew this moment mattered. This was not a performance filled with fear. This was honesty, halfway through the piece. A teacher exchanged a quiet look with another. It was not a proud look, not an impressed one yet. It was a look of surprise, of realization, of something breaking and reshaping at the same time. They had been wrong. She played as if the piano was not an object, but a conversation, as if it was listening to her as much as she was listening to it. Every note carried something personal, not loud emotion, not drama, just truth, the kind that didn't ask for attention, but earned it by being real. Her shoulders relaxed even more as the music moved forward. Her breathing stayed steady and calm. She felt grounded. This was the space she knew. This was where she belonged. Even if she had never said it out loud before, when the hardest section arrived, the part, many students feared the room felt tense again. People recognized it. They remembered hearing others struggle with it. They remembered mistakes, missed notes, broken rhythm. She did not rush. She did not fight the music. She took her time. Her fingers moved quickly, but never out of control. Each note was clear. Each pause felt intentional, not empty. The sound filled the hall completely now, reaching even the far corners where people often felt forgotten. No space was left untouched. A teacher leaned forward in their seat. Another slowly uncrossed their arms. As if they had forgotten they were doing it, no one whispered, no one moved. The music held them all as she played. Memories surfaced quietly inside her. Late nights at home? The small room. The lamplight. The times she wanted to stop but didn't. The nights when doubt sat beside her, heavy and silent, and she played anyway. The moments when she felt invisible at school, the moments when music was the only thing that felt honest. All of it flowed into her hands now. This was not about proving anyone wrong. This was not about showing skill. This was about telling the truth, the only way she knew how. As the final section approached, the music softened again. It slowed. It became gentle and careful, like a deep breath after a long journey. The notes stretched out, then slowly rose one last time. Carrying everything with them, her fingers lifted slightly. Then they pressed down together. The final note, rang out. It stayed in the air longer than expected, like it wasn't ready to leave yet. She held her hands above the keys, just like she always did at home. She waited. She let the sound fade completely before lowering her hands to her lap. For a moment, the hall was silent. No coughs, no movement, no clapping, just stillness. It was not an uncomfortable silence. It was a full one, eh? Silence filled with understanding. Then, slowly, someone began to clap. One pair of hands. The sound was soft at first, almost unsure. Then another pair joined, and another soon. The sound spread through the hall, growing warmer and steadier. Not loud cheers, not shouting, just real applause, honest applause. The kind that comes from being moved, not entertained. She stood up slowly. Her legs felt light. Her chest felt open. Her face grew warm, not from pride, but from release. Like she had been holding something heavy for a very long time and finally set it down. She bowed her head slightly. She stepped away from the piano as she walked off the stage. She felt different, not taller, not more important. Not suddenly confident in a loud way, just lighter. Behind her, the teachers sat quietly. One of them spoke without thinking too much. "I didn't know," he said softly. Another nodded, eyes still on the piano. "We didn't see it." They weren't angry. They weren't embarrassed. They were thoughtful. Changed in a quiet way that would last longer than words. After the performance, people approached her carefully. Some smiled, unsure what to say. Some nodded, showing respect without questions. A few students looked at her differently now. Not with envy, not with judgment, with curiosity. With respect, she listened politely. She didn't brag. She didn't explain herself. She didn't feel the need to tell her story. The music had already done that. Later that evening, she returned home. The house was quiet again. Just like always, she placed her bag down. She washed her hands. She sat at the piano for the first time in days. She did not play the difficult piece. She chose something simple, something soft. The notes filled the small room gently. Wrapping around her like a familiar blanket, she smiled, not because she had impressed anyone, but because she had finally allowed herself to be seen. The next week, things felt different at school. Teachers spoke to her with more care. Not overly kind, just more aware. More thoughtful. They asked questions. They listened to her answers instead of assuming them. Students no longer whispered when she passed. Some asked for help. Others simply smiled as they walked by. She stayed the same. She still sat in the middle of the room. She still listened more than she spoke. She still chose quiet over noise, but inside, something had shifted. She no longer felt the need to hide. She understood something now. Talent does not always announce itself. Confidence does not always look loud, and strength is often built in silence. The piano remained in the hall, just as it always had, heavy, silent, waiting. But now, when she passed by it, she knew something important. The music had spoken when words could not, and it had been heard.